To prove the existence of Ng Wen Sai's doctoral thesis in the Senate House Library and the IALS Library, the press statement released by LSE on October 8, 2019, stating that the Senate House Library records confirm that a copy was received and sent by them to the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, IALS. The FOIA request submitted to UOL on September 12, 2020, requested the Senate House Library records mentioned in the LSE press statement on October 8, 2019. The first file disclosed by UOL on the waitdotheyknow.com website on February 23, 2022, is the requested record. It contains 3 emails sent in 2011. The first one was sent from the Senate House Library on July 13, 2011, at 16:27. It could not find a catalog entry of Sai's doctoral thesis, but claimed that the Senate House Library once had a copy of Sai's thesis because a record of Sai's thesis was found in the National or ASLIB Index to Theses. It is an unsubstantiated claim for 2 reasons. First, a copy of the National or ASLIB Index to Theses has never been produced. Second, the LSE press statement on October 8, 2019, relied on the IALS Index document published in 1985, not the National or ASLIB Index to Theses, to prove the existence of Sai's doctoral thesis. 5 days later, on July 18, 2011, at 11:25, another email was sent from the Senate House Library. I can add to the email below that I tracked down the 1984 card output from the computer system, so I know we once had a copy on the shelf and on our online catalog, and that we sent the college copy to IALS, but they don't have it either. The Senate House Library's old card catalog and the UOL's response on January 11, 2022, prove that the claim that the Senate House Library once had a copy of Sai's doctoral thesis on the shelf and on the online catalog was bogus. UOL did not receive Sai's doctoral thesis in 1984. Even in 2023, no catalog entry of Sai's thesis can be found on the Senate House Library online catalog. Based on the second email, the copy sent to the IALS Library was the college copy. The requirement of a college copy can be found in the 1998-1999 UOL regulations, but not the 1983-1984 UOL regulations. One copy of a successful thesis is placed in the library of the candidate's college. The college copy shall be the archival copy and shall be in hardbound form. The college copy sent by the Senate House Library to the IALS Library was a phantom copy that did not exist in 1983-1984. Furthermore, the college copy was the LSE copy stored in the LSE Library, not the Senate House Library. The Senate House Library should have sent it to the LSE Library, not the IALS Library. The Research Degree Examination Office replied the next day, July 19, 2011, at 17:27. It refuted the Senate House Library's claim that it once had a copy of Sai's thesis on the shelf and its online catalog because the green record form and the reproductions of thesis form that would usually have been sent to the Senate House Library with the theses but were still in Sai's UOL student file retrieved from the archives. It also refuted the college copy claim. If the Senate House once had a copy of Sai's thesis, it might be the spare third examination copy in those days. The 1983-1984 UOL regulations required 2 bound copies and 1 adequately bound copy to be submitted for the PhD exam. The spare third examination copy was the adequately bound copy submitted for the PhD exam in the early 1980s, probably because 3 Viva examiners might be nominated instead of 2. Since the Senate House Library claimed that it once had a copy of Sai's thesis, the Research Degree Examination Office speculated the only possibility. It may be that only 1 copy of the thesis, the spare third examination copy, in those days, was sent to you some time after the close of the examination, once it was apparent to us that no headway was being made with obtaining the examiner's copies for you. It was only a speculation because the Research Degree Examination Office cannot be sure. and can't shed any light on the whereabouts of the copy you appear to have had at some stage. It indicates that, by July 19, 2011, there was no record of sending the spare third copy of Sai's thesis to the Senate House Library or anywhere else in Sai's UOL student file. In addition, no written entry clarified whether or not UOL received the examination copies after 1.5 years of chase. All 3 examination copies of Sai's doctoral thesis just vanished after the Viva exam, and UOL had no records of their whereabouts. In addition to the Senate House Library's old card catalog and UOL's response on January 11, 2022, Sai's UOL student file described in the email dated July 19, 2011, also proves that the Senate House Library's claim that it once had a copy of Sai's thesis and sent the college copy to the IALS library was bogus. Sai's non-existing doctoral thesis was reinvestigated in 2015. On June 29, 2015, based on Sai's UOL student file retrieved from the UOL archives again, UOL found that, in 2011, the Senate House Library confirmed that it sent a copy of Sai's thesis to the IALS. At that time, someone established that IALS no longer had a copy of the thesis. On January 10, 2020, Wan Lin disclosed 2 emails both received on October 12, 2019, confirming that a copy of Sai's thesis was sent to the Senate House Library in 2011. The first email was received from the Senate House Library at 4:21 p.m. Later records indicate that a third copy was sent to Senate House Library in 2011, and this was then sent on to IALS. However, it would appear that since then IALS have confirmed that they no longer have this copy. According to this email, a third copy of Sai's doctoral thesis was sent to the Senate House Library in 2011, not in 1984 when UOL awarded a PhD to Sai. The second email was sent from IALS at 4:48 p.m., reporting that, "We have been asked many times for this thesis, but we do not have a copy in our collection and we have no record that we ever received the copy that was sent to us." Marcus Cerny's email on June 27, 2019, at 13:20, confirms that the third copy of Sai's thesis was sent to the IALS library in 2011, not in 1984 when UOL awarded a PhD to Sai. Cerny's email was sent to O'Connor, commenting on O'Connor's drafted response to Wan Lin's enquiry dated June 21, 2019. In the drafted response, to prove the existence of Sai's thesis in the Senate House Library and the IALS Library, O'Connor stated that colleagues have made further inquiries, and Senate House Library records do indicate that a copy was received. Senate House also confirmed they sent their copy of the thesis to the Institute for Advanced Legal Studies, IALS, 35 years ago. Cerny pointed out that the copy was actually sent in 2011, not 35 years ago in 1984. He tried to justify that the copy was sent by the Research Degree Examinations Office in 2011. This makes sense to me because it will have been around the time that the Research Degrees Office shut at UOL and remaining responsibilities were devolved to individual institutions, though LSE had already assumed these. I imagine they will have been clearing up a number of things outstanding around that time. If a third copy of Sai's thesis was sent to the Senate House Library and then on to the IALS Library in 2011, it was sent between January 1 and July 12, 2011, at least one day before the Senate House Library claimed that it once had a copy of Sai's thesis on July 13, 2011. The Research Degree Examinations Office speculated that the spare third copy was sent sometime after the close of the examination in the mid-1980s. On July 19, 2011, the office had no record or recollection of sending the spare third copy of Sai's thesis to the Senate House Library in the past 7 months. It didn't even know the whereabouts of all 3 examination copies. Who sent the third copy of Sai's thesis to the Senate House Library in 2011? Was it sent from a unit other than the Research Degree Examinations Office at the Senate House in 2011? The email from the Senate House Library on July 13, 2011, stated that it should be online catalog, with a note added to indicate if it's been withdrawn to send to LSE, which should have happened. It indicates that the doctoral theses produced by LSE had been repatriated from the Senate House Library and sent to the LSE Library before July 13, 2011. LSE's response on March 21, 2022, confirmed that the process of withdrawing LSE theses from the Senate House Library to the LSE Library began in 2009 and was completed by the end of 2010. UOL reorganized in 2007. In 2011, 4 years after reorganization, Senate House knew that all PhD theses produced by LSE had been withdrawn from the Senate House Library and sent to the LSE Library. If the third copy of Sai's thesis had been sent from a unit at the Senate House, it would have been sent to the LSE Library, not the Senate House Library. Only 7 months ago, the Senate House Library completed the process of repatriating LSE theses to the LSE Library by the end of 2010. If it had received the third copy of Sai's thesis within 7 months after completion of the process of repatriating LSE theses to the LSE Library, the Senate House Library would have sent it to the LSE Library, not the IALS Library. Therefore, it is unlikely that the third copy of Sai's doctoral thesis received by the Senate House Library in 2011 was sent from a unit at the Senate House. It was sent by someone who was unfamiliar with UOL's system or unfamiliar with the changes in UOL's system at the time. On November 9, 2019, Dennis Peng disclosed a photo showing that 5 people were enjoying their afternoon tea, including Sai and Anthony Giddens, LSE director between 1996 and 2003, and now a member of the UK Parliament. It was taken on June 9, 2011, and posted on the Facebook page of Kai Chen, the incumbent Kaohsiung city mayor, around that time. Chen was also in the picture. Peng suspected that Sai was the source of the third copy of Sai's thesis received by the Senate House Library and sent to the IALS Library in 2011. Wan Lin suspected the third copy sent to the Senate House Library in 2011 was in the heavy handbag carried by Sai when she visited LSE in June 2011. Coincidentally or not, the Senate House Library made the bogus claim that it once had a copy of Sai's thesis on July 18, 2011, only 1 month after Sai visited LSE in early June 2011. 1 year after Sai applied and UOL reissued Sai's PhD diploma for Sai to run for the new Taipei city mayor in 2010. 2 years after Sai's doctoral thesis was added to ProQuest in 2009. The second email disclosed by Wan Lin stated that the IALS Library never received the third copy of Sai's thesis that was sent from the Senate House Library in 2011. Why did the Senate House Library claim that it sent the third copy of Sai's thesis to the IALS Library in 2011? Claiming that the copy received by the Senate House Library was sent to the IALS Library would leave a record of Sai's thesis in both the Senate House Library and the IALS Library to prove the existence of Sai's thesis in both libraries. It is evidenced by the email from Kit Good, Data Protection and Information Compliance Manager at UOL, to Wan Lin on June 19, 2019. In regards to whether the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies received a copy, the university does not have any formal acquisition records for theses from the 1980s, though correspondence records indicate a copy was sent from the Senate House Library to IALS at some point in the past. LSE did the same on October 8, 2019. The Senate House Library records confirm that a copy was received and sent by them to the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, IALS. Marcus Cerny's instruction on June 27, 2019, was I would keep the date out of it and just say that Senate House Library confirmed they sent it to IALS. The press statement released by LSE on October 8, 2019, omitted a material fact and should have read, the Senate House Library records confirm that a copy was received and sent by them to the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, IALS, in 2011.